So here I am on a Tuesday morning with my cup of coffee and a book. This particular book, The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav. And something really stuck out to me. We are currently in 2025, and it is the end of September. October is right around the corner, which means we go into the holiday seasons, we go into a season change, and we start to approach winter. And when we approach the winter, it's the end of the year, and we start to have a deeper reflection on what year we just had. We may scan events, we may take note of things that happened globally. We may also see physical changes in ourselves, as well as emotional or maybe mental changes or insights that we may have had about ourselves throughout this time. And because I am aware this is a very significant time, a lot is shifting and changing from day to day. So, my goodness, when you look at a whole year, a lot can come up, and also it can be a bit confusing of what even happened this year. So as I was reading this section of the book, I just wanted to share it with you today, hoping that maybe this can help you in some way. I'm actually starting to read from the responsibility section of his book, The Seat of the Soul, and it's the chapter about choice. And he talks a lot about the personality, the splintered personality, and the conscious choice. And I feel like right now in society, even if we don't even talk about consciousness and say, we're at this pivotal point of the world, let's take it back and say, all right, look at ourselves, right? Are we leading from our personality, or are we leading from a conscious part of ourselves that is now aware of the personality and has a choice to choose its route throughout this life? So I'm starting to read from page 120. If you are not conscious of all the different parts of yourself, the part of yourself that is the strongest will win out over the other parts. Its intention will be the one that the personality uses to create its reality. The charitable part of you, for example, may want to see the burglar that was caught in your house given another chance. But if the vindictive part of you is stronger, you will perhaps with mixed feelings press for her or his arrest. You cannot choose your intentions consciously until you become conscious of each of the different aspects of yourself. If you are not conscious of each part of yourself, you will have the experience of wanting to say or to intend one thing and finding yourself saying or intending something else. You will want your life to move on in one direction and find that is moving in another. You will desire to release a painful pattern from your experience and see it reappear yet again. It is not easy for a splintered personality to become whole because only some parts of a splintered personality seek wholeness. The other parts, because they are not as responsible or caring or compassionate as the parts that seek wholeness, pull the other way. They seek to create what satisfies them, what they have been accustomed to. These parts of the personality are often quite strong and well established. The splintered personality must always choose between opposing parts of itself. This is the backbone situation of our evolution. This is the foundational situation, the point of choice. The choice of intention is also the choice of karmic path. If you speak or act from anger, for example, you create the karma of anger. If you speak or act with compassion, you create the karma of compassion, and a different path opens before you. This happens whether you are aware of the different parts of yourself or not, whether even you are aware of the choices that you make at each moment. Unconscious evolution through the destiny of physical matter, through the experiences that are created unconsciously by unconscious intentions, has been the way of our species to now. This is the unconscious road to authentic empowerment. Conscious evolution, through responsible choice, is the accelerated way of evolution of the multisensory personality and the five-sensory personality that is becoming multisensory. Responsible choice is the conscious road to authentic empowerment. What is responsible choice? As you follow your feelings, you become aware of the different parts of yourself and the different things that they want. You cannot have all of them at once because many of them conflict. The part of you that wants more money and a bigger house conflicts with the part of you that suffers with the poor and hungry. The part of you that reaches out with compassion toward the beauty in others conflicts with the part of you that wants to use others for your own benefit or gratification. When you satisfy one part of yourself, the needs of another go unsatisfied. The fulfillment of one part of you creates anguish in another or others, and you are torn. Just as the experimenter in quantum physics cannot produce the experience of waves from physical light and the experience of particles from physical light at the same time, and must choose which experience he or she will create, so you also, as the shape non-physical light, must choose which experience you will create. As you become conscious of the different parts of your personality, you become able to experience consciously the forces within you that compete for expression, that lay claim to the single intention that will be yours at each moment, that will shape your reality. When you enter these dynamics consciously, you create for yourself the ability to choose consciously among the forces within you, to choose where and how you will focus your energy. The choice not to choose is the choice to remain unconscious, and therefore to wield power irresponsibly. Awareness of the splintered personality and of its need for integration brings with it the need for conscious choice. Each decision requires that you choose which parts of yourself you want to cultivate and which parts you want to release. A responsible choice is a choice that takes into account the consequences of each of your choices. In order to make a responsible choice, you must ask yourself for each choice that you are considering, what will this produce? Do I really want to create that? Am I ready to accept all of the consequences of this choice? Project yourself into the probable future that will unfold with each choice that you are considering. Do this not with the energy of intention, but simply to test the waters, to get the feel for what you are considering creating. See how you feel. Ask yourself, is this what I really want? And then decide. When you take the consequences of your choice into your decision, and when you choose to remain conscious, that is a responsible choice. Only through responsible choice can you choose consciously to cultivate and nourish the needs of your soul, and to challenge and release the wants of your personality. This is the choice of clarity and wisdom, the choice of conscious transformation. It is the choice of the higher frequency energy currents of love, forgiveness, and compassion. It is the choice to follow the voice of your higher self, your soul. It is the decision to open yourself to the guidance and assistance of your guides and teachers. It is the path that leads consciously to authentic power. How does this happen? You may be aware that deceiving another person is not in alignment with your soul, but decide to do that anyway in order to gain a profit or to save a relationship that you are not yet ready to lose. You may know that the path of compassion is to share your thoughts and actions, and yet decide not to share them because you think that would cost you money or security. When you choose the energy of your soul, when you choose to create with the intentions of love, forgiveness, humbleness, and clarity, you gain power. When you choose to learn through wisdom, you gain power. When you choose to create with the energy of your personality, with anger, jealousy, or fear, when you choose to learn through fear and doubt, you lose power. You gain or lose power, therefore, according to the choices that you make. The personality is interested in itself. It likes thrills, so to speak. It is not necessarily responsible, nor caring, nor loving. The soul is the energy of universal love, wisdom, and compassion. It creates with these energies. The personality understands power as external. It perceives in terms of competition, threats, and gains and losses that are measured against those of others. When you align yourself with your personality, you give power to the realm of the five senses, to external circumstances and objects. You disempower yourself. As you grow aware of your spiritual self and origin, your immortalness, and you choose and live according to that first, and the physical second, you close the gap that exists between the personality and the soul. You begin to experience authentic power. When you interact in terms of the perceptions of your personality, in terms of your five senses, there is an illusion that you do not see. A disagreement between two friends, for example, is not so much a disagreement as aspects of each surfacing in order to be healed. If they were not souls in agreement, they would not be together at all. If a father longs to be at the birth of his son, for example, but circumstances take him elsewhere, the perception that he is elsewhere is an illusion. He is with his son. As the personality becomes whole and empowered, it becomes content to let the illusion play. This is the creation of the dynamic of the soul, whereby no matter what the situation is in, it creates the best of all worlds from the power that it draws to the situation. From the perception of the personality, it is not possible to see clearly that human beings who, from the outside, appear to be making foolish decisions or to be unaware of their environment, when in truth they are simply drinking from the finest nectar of the environment and are totally content to let the illusion play. The splintered personality is not content. The contentment that it feels in one moment is replaced by anger or fear or envy in the next moment as conflicting aspects of itself struggle with each other. Your responses to the struggles between the conflicts aspects of yourself determine the way that you will evolve, consciously or unconsciously, through the experience of negative karma or positive, through fear and doubt or through wisdom. Your struggles themselves do not create karma or determine the way that you will evolve, only your responses to them. If your struggle with the conflicting parts of yourself is conscious, you are able to choose consciously the response that will create the karma that you desire. You will be able to bring to bear upon your decision as awareness of what lies behind each choice and the consequences of each choice, and choose accordingly. When you enter into your decision-making dynamic consciously, you insert your will consciously into the creative cycle through which your soul evolves, and you enter consciously into your own evolution. This requires effort, but it is really more difficult than living through the consequences that follow a decision to act in anger or selfishness or fear, when you know that with each decision to act without compassion, you yourself will experience the discord or fear or anguish that you create in another. It is not worth the effort to project yourself ahead into the probable consequences of each of your actions at each point of choice and see how you will feel in each instance, how comfortable you will be with each of the consequences, if doing that will allow you to harvest love, compassion, and authentic power. The effort that you apply to each decision to align yourself with your soul is rewarded many times. The part of yourself that reaches toward light may not be the strongest part of you at the moment. That you choose to journey toward authentic power consciously at the moment that you choose the vertical path. But it is part that the universe backs. But it is the part that the universe backs. Let me read that part again. The effort that you apply to each decision to align yourself with your soul is rewarded many times. The part of yourself that reaches toward light may not be the strongest part of you at the moment that you choose to journey toward authentic power consciously, at the moment that you choose the vertical path, but it is the part that the universe backs. When it becomes necessary, for example, for the physical, emotional body of a person to heal, a dramatic shift in nutrition is often required, wherein a person must release every one of his or her eating habits and take on the habits of eating certain foods that are much higher in vibration. 90% of that person's personality may not want to do that, but the 10% that is choosing that path for the sake of health and wholeness has more power ultimately than the 90% that is fighting to remain where it is and have its own way, because the universe backs that 10% and not the 90%. Now, I can keep going and keep continuing as to how Gary talks about this very specifically, and even speaking these words out loud, reading them, creates a deep focus because of how potent his words are and how much they are backed by the universe. So it's almost bringing that consciousness closer and closer. So when you, for example, when I feel myself either being a little bit further away from the page, trying to see the whole sentence instead of being with each word of that conscious choice, that universe is backing me up to say, yep, keep going. You're going to have that focus, right? You're going to be more and more aware of the choices that are appearing before you. And as we heal ourselves and see that that is our responsibility, there is no one else to blame for our choices. And we are in a really pivotal time where choice is extremely important. And it is time to slow down and to consider what has been happening. Have I been choosing the satisfaction of my personality? Or have I been choosing my conscious evolution? Through sometimes not getting that instant gratification and not allowing my personality to dictate my life and get what I want in that just doesn't fulfill you, or it just doesn't land, or it doesn't last. So then you need another thing, and you need another thing, and you need another thing. And that creates misery. It creates confusion. It creates frustration. And that's really difficult to be with. But if we actually take a step back from that frustration or that confusion or that upset and say, all right, how did we get here? Was this a choice that I made? Let's scan for a moment of how did I get here? And when we give ourselves that space to look at perhaps the personality has been getting what it wants and has been frustrated that it doesn't always get what it wants because it needs more and more and more. It's an empty void. Personality will always continue this route and this pattern. But just as Gary says, if we actually see that we have a responsibility with our choice and that we could say, all right, I love the example with the nutrition, right? Because when we want to eat better or we want to do something good for ourselves that we know, oh, I really need to do this, or I really want to do this. And then he talks about that splintered personality that's going to pull. And sometimes you're going to have physical discomfort from the dynamic in between that decision, right? Some people have anxiety in their chest or headaches. There is a literal energetic pull. You feel that force, that dynamic of but I want this thing that will immediately satisfy me, but I'll keep wanting it. And that immediate satisfaction will dwindle away, and I will need to put something in it to replace it. But instead, if I actually shift and change and choose differently, like the example that he gives with nutrition, for example, there's going to be 90% of your personality that's going to want that cookie, And it's just a cookie. Oh, it's just another cookie. But you're going to keep wanting those cookies. That 10% that goes, just for today, can we not have a cookie? And we choose an orange. Or we choose an apple. Or we choose a kale salad, whatever is the thing that you're trying to get yourself to do, the effort that it takes. If you actually believe and remember and realize the universe is going to back that 10% of you that's yeah, let's eat the orange. Let's eat the apple. We can have a cookie. We don't need the cookie. If that's all, we know exactly what the cookie's like. What's life like with an orange and with an apple and with less cookies? What happens then? And if you know that there is actually more power of you choosing that 10% because the universe is backing you up, all of a sudden that 90% does not have such a pull and such a grip on you. Where suffering and frustration and relapse live, right? Stay small, stay over here, stay, in the instant gratification. Instead of knowing you will be satisfied, you will have the feeling there, the tension will dissipate, it will dissolve, it will shift and change, and the personality will have to let go. It will have to evolve. It will have to be pulled along with the universe and that 10% that's no, we're eating apples and oranges and kale salads. If we feel that within ourselves, I truly believe it will feel a lot easier when you are trying to either bring more of that, what people say, high vibration, whether it's literal, like foods, high vibrational foods, whether it's thoughts, right? Oh, I really need to work on my belief system. A lot of people are working within the mind. Well, we have to also work within the physical reality. The mind is great. We're all focusing a lot on the beliefs and what we think. But are we choosing the path of the vertical and the choosing consciously and sensing into, oh, I see how that pattern keeps revealing itself to me. There's the cookie. Now I have to say no to the cookie. Whether that is another personality that shows up in your life that keeps pulling you away from your dreams, right? But if we're all looking at the internal, it's still coming from inside of you if you say yes to that. And it's going to affect you. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that this morning because I just felt like it had a lot of potency to it. And I personally needed to read that out loud and have my personality listen to it, right? That, hey, personality, the universe is backing that 10% in me that is consciously evolving and wants to change and wants to do something different and wants to create their dreams. And that gives me more power. That is where I start to feel more powerful and feel empowered to choose that route. So as we're kind of approaching the end of the year and we're starting to recognize all the choices that got us here. And I'm currently living in America. So we are going through something really big. And it's a big personality. It's a lot of personality choices. So what if we took a look at our own personalities and asked ourselves, all right, what's the conscious choice? What's the choice that, not necessarily that you should have chosen because the choice has already happened. But in the future, like he said, if you were to come across a new choice, project yourself a little bit in the future of, well, what would happen if I choose this way? And what would happen if I choose this way? You're giving yourself that space of reflection and that time of communicating with your higher self, with the universe. If the universe keeps telling you what to do instantly, it's probably your personality, okay? It takes time and space to have a literal conversation with your higher self. So if you can recognize, this navigation system or this desire or this want is coming from my personality, let me take a moment and say, all right, well, what happens when I choose the personality route? Well, I'm probably going to need more and more and more and more. Okay, now what happens when I choose the conscious evolution route? So I want you to just be there with yourself today and see, where can you choose the conscious evolution within you? Where does it live? And why would you like to change and choose that direction? If you have any comments or questions, definitely post them below. I'd love to hear what you say about this whole situation. And I will talk to you next time. Have a great day.